Right, so thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. We've now come to Gunthorpe Street, formerly known as George Yard. And if you're looking out here over on the left-hand side, you can see these very modern houses, flats that were put up, about 10, 20 years ago. Standing on the site of what used to be George Yard buildings. This was called George Yard at the time. The cobblestones which we're just walked over, are the actual cobblestones which Jack the Ripper must have walked over as well. Because this was the site of what we believe to be the first murder. Anyway, we say there were 6 murders, and we believe the first one was the murder of a lady called Martha Tabram. And her body was discovered around about 3:30 on the landing of George Yard buildings. George Yard buildings weren't being very much taller than this building. It was a converted textile factory, and it was a place for what they might call in those days affordable accommodation for poor people of the district. You had to have very good credentials, however, to live in George Yard building. You had to have regular employment so you could keep your rent payment. They wouldn't tolerate anybody going into arrears. And there was running water. There was a tap in the yard, but for those people who are living right on the top of the building, they had to walk all the way down the stairs with a pail, fill up their pail from the tap, and then have to climb all the way up again the stairs again, which is not easy, especially if it's in the middle of a cold winter. Anyway, Martha Tabram was, as indeed all the victims, they were working in prostitution. They call it now the sex trade industry. I get told off for using words like prostitute. Apparently it's not acceptable in academic circles, and we have to talk about professional sex workers. So I'm duly admonished. Anyway, there was nothing glamorous about these women. They're mostly middle-aged. When you think of prostitutes, for some reason you think of very fancy clothes and young women, but these were mostly middle-aged women. That was the only way they could actually earn money, to be honest. For one reason or another, their lives had gone into a tailspin. There was no welfare state in those days. You could always go into the workhouse. At least in the workhouse you would be safe. There's no chance you're going to get Jack the Ripper attack you there. But for their own choices, they decided to go out on the street and earn money through prostitution, simply in order to earn the few pence which they needed to go and get another glass of gin, because, as I say, most of them were alcoholics. Anyway, the body of Martha Tabram was discovered here on the 7th of August, Tuesday the 7th of August, 1888. And her body had been attacked. She'd been attacked, and there were 39 stab wounds in her body. That is, of course, really rather excessive if you think about it, but quite clearly it's the work of a maniac. There were 38 small stab wounds from a penknife, they think, and another one from a dagger, a much larger knife. So that struck people as being rather unusual. Anyway, in this part of London in those days, murders weren't quite so common, but it wasn't entirely uncommon. But nevertheless, 39 stab wounds is a bit strange, and so people realised there was something wrong about this particular murder that needed special investigation. But they thought no more about it until the following murder, the murder of Mary Ann Nichols, which I shall talk about in a little moment.